So welcome everyone to Business Women Australia online masterclass. And today we have the phenomenal Tracy Cooper, change specialist. And we're going to be discussing the secret sauce of leading organisational change, specifically in the not-for-profit sector. And I always want to acknowledge the land that we live and work on. So I live in Boorloo, and I live on the land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And I just want to pay my respect to all elders, past, present, and emerging. And I'm Leanne Jeffrey. So I'm the coordinator of Business Women Australia. I like to work with our members and welcome everyone, and generally down for a really good chat and any ideas that you have to help bring women in the community together. And we work to co-create your success. So we're working with Tracy today because she has great insight with the not-for-profit sector and organisational change. And so we're working with Tracy so she can help others establish change in their field. And we have a great collective of people. So we're not just corporate, we have business owners, entrepreneurs, we do have your directors, your C-suite women, our consultants and professionals, and we're teaming up with a lot of leaders and emerging leaders. And we focus on your leadership, business development, personal growth, influence and profile. And the thing I do best is connecting. And we welcome everyone. We love inclusion, we love diversity, because without it, we don't grow. We like people to have courage to come forward, to step into their light and be honest. We love a good collaboration. Please have your open mind, conscious care, and start the day with a smile and optimistic. My key role with Business Women Australia is working with our members, and we have the 2 membership levels. So part of our memberships is our classic connectors. They get 2 check-in planning sessions each year. Our premium leaders get 4 strategy sessions every year. And all of our members get discounted events, a website listing, sharing their knowledge, online and in-person events, roundtables, masterminds. We've got courses available, social events, collaboration, co-creation, and we love a good referral. If you're interested, we can talk later. And we have a few events around the country. So I'm going to run through these really quickly because I know Tracy has a lot of information to get through. Melbourne, Accelerated Networking with Catherine Leach. This is something new we're trying. So we do invite all of our Melbourne ladies to come to that, and gentlemen. We don't actually not invite men. Podcast with Katie McDonald, who is on with us today. And we're going to be talking investment strategies for executive women. I have another podcast with Preeti Bowler about breaking through your inner glass ceiling. Online workshop. So this is for our members, for our cultural DNA blueprint and connection. So Lynn and Vita will be hosting that. And then we have a masterclass of goal setting with Lynn. Next masterclass coming forward with climate risk and reporting for your public and private companies with Dr. Kate Ringwell from Galactic. And Perth, we love our chats, cheese and wine, because we all love wine, with Vita Carlino. 20th of July, fabulous Kerry Nodes, who's on this masterclass, will be hosting with Catherine Dixon our Conversations and Connections. And because everybody loves wine, they're doing it at Rob Dolan Wineries. And Sydney's going to have their chats, connection, and roundtable Thriving for Success with Martina Saldi. And please follow, connect, join with us. I think everybody's got my email. So if you want to follow up after that, that is fantastic. And I'm going to lead you over to the amazing Tracy Cooper. Connect, join with us. I think everybody's got my email. So if you want to follow up after that, that is fantastic. And I'm going to lead you over to the amazing Tracy Cooper.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I've been really looking forward to talking to you all today and I think we all like maybe a bit of cooking. Well, I've actually created this secret sauce from my experience of a number of years. So just a bit of a background as to who I am. I grew up with agriculture. I did a Bachelor of Ag Science. I grew up on a farm in northern New South Wales. My first career was working with wool growers in Western Queensland, but I soon worked out that it was the science of people that I enjoyed more than the science of animals in a way. So I worked on a leadership program for a number of years for the state government in regional and rural Queensland. And then I scored I had an insight, I suppose, to how I could create change. And I co-founded a business with a good friend of mine, Maria Nolan, called Sea Change Consulting. And we did that together for 23 years. But as I know change, I decided to make a change and to step out on my own earlier this year as Tracy Cooper Change Specialist. So when we were at Sea Change, we focused on team development. We did leadership, very big leadership programs for the government and agribusiness in different places. But now I'm just focusing on the change space. And I'm looking forward to, I do coaching, I do alignment work, I do advisory work. So that's a little bit about me. I'm used to change. I've been through a lot of change in my career. Who would have thought an Aggie is now doing this sort of work? But that's what I love to do. So my intention today is, when I thought about what I wanted to do, is I wanted to share my learnings and my recipe for change. And I guess for me, it's about how I can develop that recipe from 25 years of working with clients. But as I just said to you, I've also been through a lot of personal change myself. So I'm going to keep it practical, and I'm happy to offer a summary of my slides at the end of this if people would like it. I believe in sharing and giving. And I would like to provide a time for each of you to have a conversation. And we like to do that at BWA to share, because we have a wealth of experience on this call. And I've got some ideas. I've run businesses, I've worked in not-for-profit, but many of you work in it and have daily challenges. So I think it's really important to hear from you. And, like I said, I did do a lot of work in agribusiness and different sectors, but I've chosen to work in the not-for-profit sector. And it's something that it's a heart projects that I work in: childcare, aged care, or should I say early learning. So I guess there's lots of different reasons, but they're heart projects for me. And we're going to have some fun today. So for those of you who like an agenda, some people like an agenda, some people like to let it roll, but we'll do a bit of context around change and why it's important. We'll have a breakout room. And the question that I'll be asking is, what are your challenges with leading organisational change? What are you seeing in your sector? Then I'll come back and I will reveal the secret sauce and my 6 ingredients that are part of that sauce. And then we'll have some time to go back into breakout rooms and see if any of those key ingredients resonate with you. I'll do a wrap-up summary, and Leanne will then also wrap it up for some key takeaways, because I'm really keen to hear what you take away from this, but also obviously your insights. So there's 2 certainties in life. Death is one. What's the other one? Does anyone want to come off mute and tell me?
Taxes.
Taxes. And there's a third one. What do you think it is? I've created this. Yes, change.
Change.
Yes, there's change. And, that's a bit of a thing we say here in Australia. There's 2 certainties, but, getting change happening, and change will be continuing to happen because the world is changing around us. And we only needed to see in 2020 what went on in the world. I remember working with a group about 2 weeks before COVID really, really hit. And I asked the group, how much do you think the world's going to change in the next 10 years? And I had a variety of answers. And I actually had someone say, not much. I don't think lots going to change. I think we've got our technology to a point, and then bang, look what happened 2 weeks later in March. So the world is changing around us. And some of you may have heard of this concept called VUCA. It's more volatile, it's more uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous, it's messy. And, I guess for me, we can't keep doing what we've always done because it may not be relevant. And the goalposts externally in the world can shift, within Australia can shift, within Queensland, within Brisbane, within Melbourne, but also within our organisations. If we get on the front foot, we change the environment to make things more relevant. So we can't keep doing what we've always done. It's important to be able to survive and thrive is to work with change. Now, I'm telling you something that you probably think, yeah, Tracy, did I come online to hear that? We know all these things. We've heard these things. But I still see people having challenges with change, and I assuming some of you may have some of those challenges, and that's what today is about: is why we have them. Why do we have these challenges? And I guess one of the reasons, I think there's several, but every change is different. Every change in an organisation is different. Every organisation is different. Leaders have different approaches to how they approach change. So I often refer to, and I love this slide, there's not a cookie cutter. There's not one way to do change in organisations. It depends. But there are some key things that I can suggest that you do, and that's what this is about. So why does change happen? Now, you might want to throw some things into the chat here. I picked 4 here, but there could be other reasons why change happens, particularly in organisations: to solve challenges and fix things that aren't working. It could be to continuously improve and how we do our service. It could be to remain relevant and competitive and to survive. Like, we actually have to do things differently to make sure that we're here next week, next year, what have you. And then the big one at the end, it's a government decision. There's new legislation. It's mandatory. And that's what we might call a forced change. But there are many reasons why change happens. And I think one of the things that leaders often need to do to start with is think about this. Why is this happening? Why are we doing this change? Which I'll come to a bit later. So these are some types of change. People sometimes say to me, what do you mean about types of change? Well, there's some examples. If you have a new strategy in your organisation and it has some projects a part of it and a new direction, it will mean change. Change in how you're offering your services, change in how the staff need to deliver their work, so forth. New technology, that's often a big one. I've worked a lot on technology projects, new systems, CRMs. I don't know much about the software. I work with the people side of it so they can work with the change, but that's a common one. New ways of working, we're just going to do this differently. New standards, procedures. And if you think about it, you're possibly creating change often in your organisations, but we may not see it as change. Things have been done differently. New legislation, I've touched on that. Even a new org structure is change, and people in new positions. I'm working with an organisation at the moment. 5 of the senior leadership team, 3 of the 5 are brand new. So that's big change in how the organisation's running and how are we going to do, and they're actually creating a new strategy. So they've got a few things going on. But as at the bottom there, it says anything where the future state needs to be different. That's really from the current state. That's what the change is. And it's a whole session on itself, but at times I like to say to people, is this change that you're putting in place chosen by you as the senior leader, or is it unchosen because the government decided and we have to? But for example, it could be chosen for you as the senior leader or the CEO, but it's unchosen for your suppliers, your staff, your stakeholders, and so forth. So often that can create some emotional reactions. So that's just my intro to the context around change, and it's happening around us. And what I'd like to do now, Leanne, have we got our breakout rooms set up? Because I'm going to send you into the breakout room to have a chat. And what I'd like you to do in the breakout rooms is to think about this question. What are your challenges with leading change? Or if you're not leading one, what you've experienced with organisational change? And I'd like you to think about, has it been hard? What is the hard part about it? And I'd love someone not to take amazingly essay notes, just jot some points down, because when we come back, I'll be spinning around each group just to hear some stuff, because I think it's really useful to hear what each of you, a succinct summary, probably like 30 seconds to 40 seconds from what your group talked about. So when you get in there, can you introduce yourselves and say, hello, I'm such and such, and I'm from this. You might want to say a bit of that, but then have some time. Leanne, how many groups have we got? Have we got 2?
I was going to do 2 groups of 4.
Great, excellent. So you're going to have 8 minutes. So it's a good amount of time. You've got 4 minutes. It's roughly 2 minutes each, but you might do a bit of a chat to start with, but decide who'll just take a bit notes and might speak on behalf of your group when you come back. But have a conversation, share what your challenges are.
And just a disclaimer, the groups are not recorded.
Yes.
So anything that you don't want to go on the recording you can discuss in the groups, because it won't go out into the public as well.
Thanks, Leanne. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Have fun in your groups. You're first back, Deb Clark.
Oh, Speedy, that's me. We can't believe you. We reckon you ripped us off some minutes.
I probably did.
They only got to listen to poor me.
We
Did
got
they, Mary?
short a minute.
Yeah,
Oh,
not fair.
not fair. Well, we can talk a little bit about it here together. We've got a little bit of time to do that. So, yeah. Got a few challenges, Mary, have you?
Well, I think I hit every box that you put up. I said to the team, there wasn't anything where I could say, oh, maybe we haven't got that issue or change happening, but we do.
Yes. Well, having had a little bit of a chat to you, I understand that it might be a bit of there's challenges.
Yes.
I see the post that IBIS number 5. I've got number 5.
Correct. That's one of the strategies. And they're going for number 7, 8, 9.
Oh, okay.
And you know, my head's doing like the 360 at the moment, you know, because it means everything that you've mentioned, like the strategies, technology, ways we work, the standards, policies, procedures, the legislation, organisational growth and structure is all impacted by every decision. It's all moving pieces every day. We're juggling. I'm watching it, and we're all juggling positions to, you know.
Okay. So, Mary, is that what you were talking about in your group? The challenges?
Yeah.
Just what you've said is those challenges.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I know a little bit about Mary's world. So So others in your group, were you in that group, Angela? Was it Angela and Deb? Yeah. Did you see, is there any others that you want to offer? Like Mary's just said all the ones I put up. Is there any other challenges? You don't have to, but is there anything that you had as challenges?
Well, I'm just thinking. I think one of my challenges around the change at the moment is around leadership. So similar to what Mary was saying about, you know, growth is maybe compounding some issues that might have already existed. So if you don't have a leadership that's good in that change space, it becomes exacerbated when you're going through rapid growth and change. So leadership was probably the one piece that was, and governance that was sort of maybe I'd add.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Yeah, closely connected. Anything else from you, Ange, or you?
I just said to Mary, you know, she sounds like she's got a very challenging role, but I said, building on her points, I said, would staffing be an issue? Because that's certainly the same in early learning. And also, I didn't talk in the group, but English is a second language.
Yeah.
That is a big
challenge
in early learning.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's in most sectors, really, isn't it?
Okay. All right. So Estelle, was Estelle with you as well in your group? Yeah. Estelle, did you have any challenges?
Not myself, but it's more around the clients I have.
Yeah.
And it's very similar. Mary's stories are really resonated in a way, and same. I work with a lot of home care providers, and the chop and changing between, you know, delays has actually, for those who are trying to make it a chosen change, it's actually quite difficult engaging also their teams in it. It's already a difficult change, but then if there's a delay, then it sort of halts the process a bit, and there's a bit of uncertainty, and it just makes it so much harder to proactively do things.
Okay, so I think some of my ingredients might help that I'll offer, Estelle, in that space. Tracy, I'll just recall you, is on your behalf of your group, what were some of the challenges? Are you the spokesperson or someone in your group? What were the challenges in your group?
So we did speak about the paper, going from the paper trail to the digital transformation space. That is quite difficult for a lot of people. And then we talked about specifically I guess in my organisation, we have what's been happening in the past. It's always been that way, and those particular employees can't see what benefit that change could bring them. So it's sort of that engagement piece that
was there other issues in your group? I can't recall who was in your group, but was there other challenges people had? Anyone else?
Perry, did you want to?
Yeah, we're also talking about just how much change there's been over the last few years. So the hybrid situation and just what that brings into the mix. Totally agree with Deborah on that leadership. You know, I'm doing a big change project at the moment, and it's really about making sure the leaders are engaged and excited and capable to roll out change. And we were saying just how long time it can take a long time to get through those emotions, you know, set them up with the capabilities and the competencies needed to do it, and to be a cohesive front so that you can then roll it out through. So all three of us were talking in that space that we needed to engage people to make it happen effectively, and that you can have processes and procedures, but if you haven't got people wanting and understanding what's in it for them, then we're a little bit pushing it uphill.
Yeah. You are, Kerry. Thank you. Was there anything else from that group? These are really good challenges. They're common ones I see. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do now is thank you, and I'll relate to some of those challenges. That's helpful for me as I talk through this. But I'll give you a few stats from research, and then I'll give you the secret sauce, the recipe. So I guess one of the things, you know, this whole people don't like change. And you were saying it, Tracy, like, why are we doing this? What are we going to do? And I actually don't know whether people don't like change. I'm not saying not everyone doesn't, but I actually think it's got to do with how it's done, how it's introduced, the lack of information, the lack of communication. I do believe people are, and this is very general, they like to know what they're doing daily, and what they're doing matters. And if we change that, well, why are we doing that? What's the benefit of that? You touched on that, Tracy, and so did you, Kerry. So it's what I see some leaders when they ring me, and it's like they need a paramedic, quick, like this is not working. They actually haven't spent time to get some of that early stuff clear in the whys. So you've probably seen this stat around, but who can take a stab as to what percentage of change projects, like you're working on one now, Kerry, you know, what percentage of them fail across the board? Who'd like to take a stab?
70%.
Did you say 70, Angela? Oh, she's correct. And not just because she's my sister. Right, so 70% of projects fail. That's scary. That comes from McKinsey's research, American consulting firm. But ProSci, who I'm an accredited change manager through ProSci, they say 75. There are people who say bunk them. It's not true, but I think it's up there. It's up there as to why things don't work. And I think there's a lot of times people look at businesses and go, this is cost. I worked on a project probably 7 years ago, and it was $8 million worth of software going into a local government. And if they got that wrong, that's $8 million of ratepayers' money, you know, plus some government funding. So the urgency is to get it right, let alone whether it's a private company or not for profit or everything else, but how much money it costs to not get it right. And it's scary that stat. And that's been around. I just checked that again yesterday, and they're still saying it last year. So let's hope that might change. But another question I'll ask you, where do you think in an organisation the greatest resistance comes? In which level? Is it CEO, senior leaders to a change? Is it middle leaders? Is it the staff? Who wants to take a stab at that one? Who resists the change most?
I want to say staff.
Yeah.
I reckon the understanding didn't filter through.
And you know what, Leanne? Everyone says that. But you know where it is? It's middle management. And I really feel for middle managers. I have a soft spot. I work a lot with middle managers. So why do you think middle managers might resist? Here comes another one. You know, it's coming from the top, because they have to often on the ground deliver it. And if they're not understanding it, and they're not confident to go out and address their teams with this, I can understand why they resist. They are, I should have the picture, a meat in the sandwich.
Yeah.
Like they have to deliver. They've got stuff to do. Interestingly, senior management, so if you looked at a traditional CEO has maybe 4 on the executive team, and then your middle managers, 27%. And I worked that particular project I was telling you about. There was 5 in the executive team. 2 of them were resisting it. And when you think about the messages, and it was so obvious to the rest of the staff, you add those 2 figures together. I'm not a statistician, but 70% of the reason why it's resisting lies those 2 areas. And the staff, I think the number for staff is only about 23%. So everyone blames the staff, but it's starting from middle and up, and that's one of the, I guess, the insights that I have in today is that's where you start. You start here, is to getting people on board and aligned with the actual change. And this is ProSci research, why 5 obstacles to change happening. Number 1 is insufficient change management resourcing. We've got to do this thing, but it might be $8 million worth of software, but we just want to spend about 20 grand on the staff. That's not going to work. It's about resourcing the staff to understand it and think through it and so forth. There it is there, lack of active and visible change management sponsorship. So everyone in the middle leader and senior are what I call sponsors. They are to sponsor this, but if they don't like it and they're resisting it, it's going to get in the way. So I'll come to that in a minute. That's where you start. Manager and supervisor resistance. Number 4, resistance to change from employees. It is there. And number 5, division between project management and change management. Like project managers just want the timelines done, and change managers like me will say, they're not ready. They don't understand. I've got a timeline to meet. And, so sometimes project managers don't like change management. But that's research from the American company ProSci. That's what gets in the way. So change creates emotional reactions. I think we all know that people react, and there's a myriad of reactions, not just from you as leaders who have got to deliver this news and the change, but those who are having to work it. So there are 3 needs in changing times. People need, and you can apply this to home, even your home life. They need information about the change, facts, timelines, and the big why. Why are we changing now? What risks? There's a talk in change language, which is what's the burning platform? If we don't go, what's going to happen? Support. People need support to be able to express how they're feeling and feel supported from their leadership. If there's, I've heard a number of leaders say, get over it, build a bridge, that sort of stuff is happening. That doesn't help. It doesn't actually help people feel supported because they don't feel listened to, which comes to my last one, which is inclusion. Consulted, ask me what I think and value my ideas and to be listened to. So if anything that you remember out of today, it's that we've got to give them information and we've got to keep giving it. We've got to support them and we've got to include them. And inclusion doesn't mean in consultation that they can change it. This is where we're going. There's a decision being made, whether it's been by the government, the board, or whatever. We're doing this, but how do we make this work? And you are on the ground, particularly middle leaders. How do we do this? So that's where it's about slowing it up to get input and so forth from each other. Because if we think about every project is a change and every change is a project in your organisation. So even if it's a new website, that's a project, but it's a change. So there's different things that are going on, and that's the marriage between project management and change management. I could do a whole session just on this, but the blue arrows are possibly what we know in project management. Change management, this comes from ProSci. Change management is all these things. It's got some big words there, but how ready are we? The sponsor coalition means your middle leaders and your senior leaders. Are they ready to sponsor this and get on the bus, et cetera, et cetera? So a lot of times the blue arrows start up here and the red start sort of down here, a lot further down, whereas the change has to start early. So here we go. Here's the cookie cutter approach. There's an overriding strategy, which I've come up with, which is the secret. It's not probably a big secret, but the overarching strategy and some ingredients. So what it is, the secret to implementing successful change is to help people choose it. And you go, oh my goodness, how am I going to help these people choose it? I'll show you how. Because forcing change on people results in friction and flight and fight reactions. And you've possibly all seen it. When you force something, you're trying to drive a square peg in a round hole, what's going to happen? It snaps or it breaks or something happens. It won't fit. So people think that if they force change on people, it's the quick option. But the quick option isn't always the best option, because you actually disengage. And the idea is to help people choose it. And I'm going to show you how. There's a model by ProSci. I won't go into this in too much detail, but it's a good one. Awareness, desire, knowledge, and ability. It's called ADKAR. And what a lot of times people don't do is raise that awareness. Why are we doing it? The benefits Tracy was talking about, Kara, you were talking about too. So they desire it. I like to use the word decide. Okay, I get it. I don't really like it myself, but I get that the organisation needs to do this because of ABC. I can see that they talk about the WIFM or the WIFU, what's in it for us. So a lot of organisations, and then I want them to do the change. Just do it, be good at it. So they wheel everyone into training, and if it's a new software system or whatever it is, and they've missed A and D completely and not done maybe some very good training. So they just want people to do it. So that's where the struggle comes from. So the secret sauce is connected to awareness and desire, is helping people say, I can see it, I don't like it, but I can understand why. So how do you help them choose it, which is the overarching strategy of the secret sauce, the 6 areas. I've come up with 6 ingredients of my sauce. So this is based on a bit of research, bit of work I've done. So the first one is committed. As a leader, you need to be 100% committed. You can't pass the ball to somebody else and say, can you do this change, please? And just give it to someone. You have to be believing in it, even if it's government legislation or a mandatory change. And you've got to be there. You've got to be active and visible and be seen to be a part of it. You know, people will spot, well, we never see the CEO or we never see the exec team. It's, you know, it actually, you have to be committed. Clarity, getting very clear on your case for change. Why are we doing it? Why now? We actually have to be considerate. Consider how people feel, show that empathy, and not that whole, because I'm the leader and I'm telling you, you should do it. It's consideration. Cohesive, there's the leadership team, aligned. Communication, constantly. Communicate. I've had senior leaders say to me, but I sent out an email and I mentioned it at a town hall. Meaning, it's not enough. There's got to be constant communication through the whole process. And communication doesn't mean just talking and telling. Communication also means listening and taking on board. And the last one is co-create. Help your people help you. So create the environments for them to, and it doesn't have to be, you know, all day sessions, but it's short sessions where people can contribute their ideas, offer their feedback. So I'll briefly go through each one, but this, I'll give you the deck and you can have it. So the committed as a leader, I've touched on it. You've really got to think about, is this chosen or unchosen for you? And how am I going to deliver this? And not just pass it to someone else, and be active and visible. Don't just turn up at the launch morning tea and then not be seen. You actually have to be seen. And that's where trust will come. Trust will come if people see my leader's in this, or she's in this, or they're in it. The second one, the case for change. There are the questions. What's the benefits for all stakeholders? And it might take you a while to work that out. WIFM, you've possibly heard that. What's in it for me as an individual? Sometimes for some individuals, there's not a lot in it for them. But WIFU is another way of looking at what's in it for us as an organisation. It's for the good of the organisation. This is why there's a benefit. So I've actually heard people, once they've had time to go, I can't, yeah, I'm feeling a bit yuck about it myself, but I can see why the organisation is doing this. I can see it. So that's at least something. And those questions, why are we changing? What challenge is this change solving? What if we don't change? That's that sense of urgency. So they're questions that as the senior leader and or leadership team, you should actually work on first before you go anywhere else, and talk to and get it clear between you, then go to your middle leaders. Number 3, that consideration. It's all about empathetic leader. It's not forcing. Walk a mile in people's shoes. This is hard for them. And it's questions like, once you've shared it and listened to them, what are your thoughts? What are your concerns? How can I support you? Walk a mile in their shoes, as I just said, and talk less and listen more. So it's not talking at, it's actually, you do need to share information, but there's this preconceived idea that because you're the leader, people will listen and follow you. They may not. Because they don't trust this situation, they may not trust you. So it's about, you've got to pick up and be a good listener as to show your consideration and empathy. Number 4, C, key ingredient, the cohesive leadership team. I've just been doing a series on LinkedIn about this because the temptation is to dive into action quickly. And if you're not on the same page, it actually is obvious, but it creates conflict in the senior leadership team. And, you know, there's the old one I've heard people say, it's an IT project, for example, it's a new system technology. So that belongs to the IT department. It's not really affecting me. Well, it does, because it touches every employee in the organisation. So leaders need to be on board, and the misalignment will, you know, create so much dysfunction, but everyone in the organisation will lose faith in the leadership team. So you've got to get that right. So that's why I say take some time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, but take some time to scope this change together and iron out your differences and celebrate the difference, but work together. And I just, to be honest, that's the right way to lead. It's an empathetic and respectful way to lead. Forcing and autocratic leadership is not necessarily the best tool in change. Yes, if there's a fire in the building, we need to get out autocratic leadership, but it needs to be somewhat democratic. Yes, there's timelines and so forth. Number 5, I've touched on it. I don't need to go too much on there. It's listening, sharing, consistent messages, and consulting your team. So communication is two-way, not just sharing and talking. It's listening and picking up what I'm hearing. You're looking for resistance. So that's what you need to do, because the resistance that your people will tell you, you can help iron out those. And ProSize research tells us that you can actually spot 50% of the resistance, or you'll know. I know they're going to resist this. Interesting stat. But if you think about a change you're going through and you think, I know where they're going to resist X, Y, Z. And what you do is you can cut that off at the pass and plan for that. And the last C is that co-create. So this is a bit of a, I guess, an insight for some leaders to go, well, don't I have to come up? No, you actually can utilise your middle leaders, and middle leaders can utilise their teams, because they're the people on the ground who will be doing the change, whatever that is. So you could actually engage them to not to say, we're going to fight this, as the co-creation means we use everybody's ideas to make this thing move forward. So, of course, it's about creating a safe environment for people to feel comfortable and psychologically safe to offer their thoughts, and that all ideas are valued. So some people go, oh, my goodness, this takes time. Yes, it does. It does take time. But if you do it well at the front in a structured way, it will save you so much time, because you won't have that blocking of the change moving forward. So it's the safe environments, it's conversations. It's learning to, as I said, listen and share, not tell and talk at. It's about picking up where we might have some, you're looking for resistance all the time, because when things resist, it will grow, and then that can block your change. And here's your favourite slide, Leanne. Change happens at the speed of trust. So all those 6 ingredients I gave you are helping people trust you as the leader, but also trust the change. Because if they don't trust you as the leader to start with, you're in trouble. But if they might trust you, they've got to trust the change. So those 6 ingredients, if you're keeping in your head, I've got to help them choose this, I've got to help them see this is good for them, we can move forward. So there it is, the secret sauce. Don't you love that picture? Looks yummy. So the strategy, the overarching strategy is I've got to help people choose this, which is that ADKAR, decide, desire it, get it. My desire's a bit strong. I say decide. I'll get on the bus, maybe grudgingly, but I'll get on. And then those 6 C's, which I can give you in the deck. And what you're looking for is trust. Trust in you and trust in the change itself. And if you do none of those 6 C's at the front, that's where you'll have trouble. That's where you'll have trouble doing it. Okay, so there's the big reveal, the secret sauce. So what we'll do is we'll go into a breakout room. Enough from me. Now, if we go into a breakout room, I'd love to hear if any of those C's, you are the first. Well, first, I've just launched that to you, the 6 C's. I haven't launched that to anyone yet. I've talked about those things in isolation, but I've packaged it now into a recipe. So, you know, does any of those C's resonate with you, and can you see how any of them can help with the challenges that you have? So we'll go in for 6 minutes, Leanne. And we will keep the clock on, Deb Clark, so we don't cut you short. We might even give you a little bit more.
Just so, you know, the time is set, people.
We might even give them 7, Leanne. I've looked
We'll
at my
give them
schedule
7.
here. We'll give
be
you
generous
7.
today.
We'll give you a bit back. We'll give you a bit back from last time. So they're going to different groups this time?
They're going to be randomly.
Yes, just to give you an opportunity to talk to some different people.
Okay.
Yeah. Any of those 6 C's, and could it help you or not? I'd love your ideas. Hear back from people.
Right. We've got everyone back.
Is everyone back?
Yes.
I can't see them all actually. So welcome back. We'll go with, I just recall Tracy in your room. What were some of the things that you talked about in your room? Was Kerry in that group too, I think? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So we spoke about sort of an upcoming big project that that I've been asked to be a part of, which is like an organisational wide policy review. So I'm part of like the finance HR piece, and thinking about the 6 C's, it sort of gives me an extra bit of way that I perhaps might approach it. But I did put the question about well, what happens if your leaders, the middle leaders, they're not on board? So we talked about that consideration piece in terms of what is it that is actually a problem for you? So, we're actually giving you the opportunity to be part of this change. So what's the worry?
Yes. And
that's what I haven't thought about before. So
okay, Tracy, one of the things I could help you, and happy to talk to you after this, but when a change is decided, whether it's through a board or even the CEO decides and then says, come on, senior leadership team, just start there and get them all singing off the same hymn sheet. Then do not announce it to the rest of the staff. I wouldn't suggest that. Go to the next level. Go to the middle leaders and actually look to them and help them settle through that ADCAR, help them, because they could be going, oh, here we go again. There's something else I have to do. So before you go announcing it to everyone in the organisation, work with them. And it could take several, one-on-ones. It could take several, sessions with them just for them to air their thoughts and to get it out. And if it's unchosen for them, which is a whole different probably webinar, but they could be just blame mode reacting, and you've got to get them through that because they are the key to your success. Your middle leaders are the ones that will make this happen. So they need the amount of time, they need support, because you then need them to help you go and deliver some stuff. So you can actually drip feed them. So because if they're not on board, they won't be communicating stuff out. So they need the support, and they need to feel supported and valued to be able to do their job. And then you ask them, can you now please go to your teams and do X, Y, Z? So that's where I see leaders make mistakes. They rush through that and announce to everybody. And the middle leaders are sitting there and could be blindsided and go, I didn't even know this was coming. So, and some of that research too from ProSci talks about that people, the staff, for example, employees like to hear about how this impacts them from the person they report to directly. They might want to hear from the CEO or the senior leadership team about where it fits in the overall strategy, but they might be worried about, am I moving my desk? Have I got to change my shift hours? And it's the direct supervisor that they may not always trust them, but they want to hear it from them. So they play a vital role. So yeah, it's taking time with them to hear their concerns. Anything else from that particular group? No. All right, to the other group. Estelle, your group, I can recall you're in that group. Anything that you wanted to offer to the rest of us about?
I guess what we talked about. Well, we talked about that we could see all 6, being really important. We actually seem to focus on for ourselves the ones that perhaps don't always there around co-creating and taking the time to do that, but also the consideration one, having the time and to have that empathy and around acknowledging all the things that are going on for people. around that change, but also, you know, other changes they're dealing with. And also around being committed up front, with leadership committed up front.
Yes, I've worked on a project where the senior leadership team had decided, or one of the senior leaders, head of corporate services, I'll just say that, the CEO wasn't on board. And it was difficult. It was difficult because the CEO would throw barbs in meetings and I'd be with them and I'm thinking, oh goodness, this is not helping. So he couldn't just get the change itself, but it's the commitment that we need. And if you're the main sponsor, that's one thing, but you need your colleagues in the senior leadership team to be also talking it up, I say, not talking it down. And same thing with the middle leaders. And many of you might be sitting there going, yeah, but how do you do that with our middle leaders? I get it. Some of them are challenging. I get it. But don't be defeated. It's something that if you can get, but if you can show some compassion and show some empathy and show that you want to listen to them, that can be half the battle, you know, because people feel like they don't care about us. They're just making us do this. And if you've got that thinking, your change is in trouble. Thanks, Estelle. Anyone else from that group have anything that they wanted to add about the C's or how it could help?
I think, well, I know Deb made a good point in our group. She said, you know, if you're a senior leader or the CEO in an organization and you can see it's not, your team's not aligned, you have to be the one that stands back, pauses and goes, okay, what's going on here?
Yes.
We need to change something.
Yes. Yeah, great point. You've got to own it as the CEO or the senior leader and go, or if you aren't the CEO, you're just in the leadership group, is to call the elephant in the room with the team. And that's why change requires difficult conversations. It's linked to all the stuff that we might do in a leadership program, but it is that those conversations that need to be had. Because I did a video yesterday, day before, on LinkedIn about you can get your case for change, okay, that you're all on board, but if you're the way you function and the way you work together, you know, just how you run your meetings and how you communicate, and if there's a bit of backbiting, it will get in the way as well. So it's the health of the team and the health of and getting the clarity on the change to get the alignment. And don't go any further until you get that. I think we're right. I think we're right. I think we're right. All righty. Well, thank you. I think that's really that's helpful. And as I said, that's the launch of the 6 C's. There is a few. I had trouble. I tried to get it to 5, but I just think to me, all those C's help with creating choice, creating people to choose to get on the bus with this change. So I'm just going to wrap now, really. People often say, well, why do we get it wrong? Why do leaders get it wrong? And the first thing I want to say is because they're human. You know, people beat up on leaders all the time, particularly in the organisation. But leaders, you also have to be vulnerable and say, I didn't get this right, or I've made some mistakes, or what have you. But I talk about passion or pressure. So sometimes they have a passion for this change. It's a chosen change for them. They want to share their passion. They see the benefits for the organisation. As a leader, if you've chosen it and you're introducing it, you may have been thinking about it for 3 months. You know, it's in your head and you've been working through it. And whereas everybody else is 3 months back there, this is news to them. So they don't share the passion. So that's the thing. But when people are passionate, they're like, come on, let's go. Like, we could do this, you know, and people are like, I don't want to do this, you know, because they're not there yet. Or there's pressure to make it happen. So they skip steps. The board has said to them, or they're running against a timeline, government legislation wise, but you know, I know that's happening in aged care a bit, you know, with the whole new Aged Care Act and different things that we're under pressure. We've got to get this done. So steps get skipped, and that's where some of that people stuff goes missing. And I haven't got time to do that. Poor planning and process. It's how are we going to do this? I've got this change we're going to do, but thinking through how we do that. And that's where the C's come in. But also I think sometimes we focus on the change. Say if it's new technology or say it's a new piece of legislation, we're focusing on it, but we don't think about the people enough. And we go, well, how do we engage them in this? How do we word this? How do we take our time with this? So focusing on the change can do that. So I guess I'm starting to draw it to a close. I guess what I believe in is that change helps us to grow and remain relevant, but that's not always relevant to some staff when they're feeling pressure with all their timelines. But my purpose is to help them not be threatened by change, to actually thrive in it. And that's why I like to support and stand with leaders to say, we can do this. We just have to take your time to be able to do this well, because people have, and this is a whole nother webinar, people have memory or memories of the previous changes that happened in this organisation. So they have that change legacy or change baggage, and that can block them being open to wanting to even thrive in this. And that's why I think change gets a bad rap, because it's just everything's been so quick. So that's what I do. I stand beside leaders and I guide and help you get up the hill and do this first, do that first, and so forth. Because I think it's a marathon. I don't know if anyone's ever run a marathon. I haven't, but I did a little bit of running. You can't go out at fast pace from the start. It's actually pacing yourself through that journey. And I'd like to read you something. If you'd like to close your eyes, I'd like to read it to you, and so you can just relax. And I'm going to read you this to finish, and then Leanne's going to talk about. We'll have maybe a bit of question time as well. So it's called The Bishop's Quote. When I was young and free and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I discovered the world would not change. So I shortened my sight somewhat and I decided to change my country, but it seemed immovable. As I grew into my twilight years, those closest to me, in one last desperate attempt, I settled for changing my family, those closest to me. But alas, they would have none of it. And now I realise as I lie in my deathbed, if I had only changed myself first, then by my example, I might have changed my family. From their aspirations and encouragement, I would have been able to better my country, and who knows, I may have even changed the world. And that comes from the inscription from a tomb of an Anglican bishop in Westminster Abbey. You can now open your eyes. So the message, what's the message? Anyone want to see what's the message there?
Starts with our own attitude.
Yes, it starts here. So as leaders, we need to at times, there can be, I'm using my hands, but pointing, they're not doing this and they're not there. Point the fingers back here. What am I doing? Do I need to dance a different dance? Do I need to change how I'm leading this? Because it's not helping how I'm doing it. So it does all start with the person who is leading this change and how they go about doing it. And that's how you'll have impact, and then maybe use the 6 C's. So that's really all I had to offer on the 6 C's. We've got a little bit of time for about 5 minutes if you'd like to ask some questions, and then Leanne will do a bit of a wrap of the morning. So does anyone have anything they'd like to ask?
I haven't got a question, but I do have a comment.
Yes,
I love the recipe. Absolutely love the recipe. As you know, I work in a similar space, Tracy, but I think that the C's cover off what's needed, and it's like a recipe. If one of those things is missing, it's not that wonderful sauce. We know it's an almost sauce, but if you've got all the bits, then it sings, and I love it.
Thank you, Kerry. It is a bit like, when you do literally taste something, you go, that needs a little bit more of something. And that's what I haven't gone here in this webinar too, but I do talk about this a lot on LinkedIn, is the power of the pause, is stopping regularly to actually go, where are we? Let's take a meter check here. Do we need a little bit more commitment? Do we need a little bit more co-creation? What is it to get this sauce to be what it is? Because remembering that the sauce, those 6 ingredients help that choice, which is all to do with trust. And so thanks. I love your feedback. Thanks, Kerry. I really appreciate that. So,
Tracy, I do have another question. I'm currently getting at the minute from most people in our organisation. Yeah,
Would there be like micro changes along the way that would add up instead? Because, you know, we tend to focus on big changes all the time, and sometimes it's the little steps that sometimes we need to get in. So I dare say you guys might be in a constant state of change, even with those micro changes. Not that I'm in sport, or no.
Yeah.
I like
think
that though,
that's-
Leanne. It speaks
Yeah.
to my early childhood. It's like I don't teach a child how to tie their shoelaces without breaking it down. And so with my change, do I have to start with where do I want to get to, or do I break it down? And like, does that help Tracy with her chunking it down for the now piece?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
I
good
think
one.
it can also be the reframe, right? Of this is overwhelming and this is too much, to the reframe of, you know, what opportunities do we have that are going to help us move forward, and just starting some conversations without, because it's as Tracy said earlier, it's a process, and part of that is getting buy-in. So just having some conversations about possibilities can help people start thinking forward even, and it can stop some of the overwhelm even.
Yeah,
If it's
that's a
coming
good
from
point.
that framing.
Good point. Yeah, it's like start the conversation at least. And I guess there's, you know, the old saying, there could be low-hanging fruit that is part of it. You know, is there something that we could, you know, do that's not, you know, that would help? But I think that's a good one, Kerry, is to start the conversations at least. Because the conversations, I use the slide on that, conversations help people start to get their head around it.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to thank everyone for coming. I'm going to stop this recording so we can open up the floor a bit more. Thank you for joining our online masterclass, The Secret Sauce of Leading Organisational Change in the Not-for-Profit Sector, with change specialist Tracy Cooper. If you'd like to know more about change and leading in your organisation or business, please contact Tracy at tracycooper.au and connect with her on all socials. We'll see you next time.